Hello. Have I got a clicker as well? Yes, I have a clicker. Good morning. Hello, we're BIMA. I'm specifically Holly. I'm the MD of BIMA. Welcome everyone. A massive thank you to Isobar for hosting us today. Who's a member of BIMA? You all know what I'm talking about then. I'm going to whiz through this stuff. I'm literally going to tell you a couple of things about BIMA because sometimes you forget. And then I'm going to introduce the keynote for our panel today. So, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. So we are the representative body for the British digital industry. We do that through learning, networking, awarding, and mentoring. If you don't know about our mentoring program, give us a shout because it's amazing and it's now happening every quarter. Oh, thanks, Anthony. It's my assistant. So we are by trade, we're a membership organisation. You all know that because you're all members of ours. And we're about 400 corporate partners now. So the biggest we've been, I think. And that's, I guess, our heritage is digital agencies, full service agencies, but we're also increasingly having members join us that are brands, so big brands like Nando's and Wants To, charities. So we've got our Charities Council run by Cancer Research UK and lots of other charities on that board. Technology companies, little and large. Academia, so lots of universities who really, really want to speak to you all about how they can get their students and their faculty more engaged with the industry, and startups, and of course scale-ups and everything in between. So we hope that when you come to anything that you really get to mix with a super broad and diverse community of industry folk, because that's what we feel is going to be most beneficial for you. If I press this.
Oh.
Magic. Oh, we went. Oh, now we're doing double.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Go on.
Double up.
I'm off. Okay.
You're sacked. You had that job for about 30 seconds.
1, 2.
You're not actually sacked. And last but not least, and I don't know how aware everyone is of this, but the reason BIMA is quite unique is that we are kind of a community of communities right from the core. So I have a governance who, we decide the direction of BIMA, the central council who meet every quarter, but then pretty much everyone on that central council also chairs or co-chairs another council. So we are running 18 of those at the moment. Think tanks, where it's AI or blockchain or immersive, or councils where it's something longer term. And they are between 15 or 20 people on each, and they really set the agenda for BIMA. So pretty much everything we produce on a week-by-week basis is a result of discussions and the input of the people on those councils. So they're super important. Next week, we are doing a call out for new councils. So anyone in our community can submit a new idea for a council and submit to be chair of that council. You can also see where there are spaces on existing councils for chairs, of which I know we have 2 or 3, and also where specific councils are looking for new members. So I know, for instance, diversity and inclusion are, data is, AI is, and maybe a couple of others. So it's worth looking out for, and you really do get the most out of BIMA if you are involved in a council in some way. So last but not least, who knows about BIMA Digital Day? Okay, I will tell you. So BIMA Digital Day is on the 12th of November. It's open to any secondary schools and any companies/agencies. Essentially, we match you with a, hope, fingers crossed, as local as possible secondary school. We provide you with the toolkits and the framework to go in there for the day, and basically teach students between 13 and 17. You might get 10 of them, you might get 150 of them. what the digital industry is, the sorts of opportunities that are in the digital industry that they, for the most part, don't know about, because it's usually assumed it's, digital is coding or something, very technical, whereas, as we all know, there's huge opportunities in all corners of the digital industry. So there's still time to sign up. We have record number of schools applying. I think we're nearly 250 schools are taking part this year, all over the UK. So last year in 90 different cities and countries. So it's massive. I haven't met a single person who hasn't been incredibly rewarded by going in for the day. I would highly recommend it. Right, today, I'd like to introduce you to Fabio Torlini. Hi. He's MD of WP Engine. He's going to give us a keynote on the topic today, the Great Equalizer, and then introduce our panel, who are going to come up and give their perspective, and then a short discussion. And then hopefully we'll have time to open it up to the floor for questions. Cool.
Sorry, buddy, I was actually just texting my sister quickly about Digital Day. She works in a school, and I was like, okay, sounds quite interesting going there. Actually, my sister came up to one of the WordPress WordCamps once, and brought all her school children along to learn about WordPress and how to actually code and create websites. So I thought, she'd be interested in that. Okay, the Great Equalizer. So first of all, introductions. My name's Fabio. I'm the MD for WP Engine, and actually we've got about 50 slides, but they are quick slides, and we've got some really good content based around industry trends, consumer trends, open source trends, and kind of wrap it all together with a documentary which we're working on towards the end. We don't show you the whole documentary, don't worry. Okay, so first of all, WP Engine. Overall, we're a WordPress platform. We're the leading WordPress platform for mission-critical WordPress websites. We've got about 120,000 customers. We host about 500,000 websites. What's quite interesting is about 5% of the world's traffic will go through one of our websites on any day, so lots of scale. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the Great Equalizer. So as I said, how technology is changing the industry. First of all, from an industry perspective, from an agency perspective, and consumer perspective as well. So if we cast our minds back to the golden age of advertising, when if you had an unlimited budget, you went out and influenced consumers by spending lots of money on television advertising or print. You typically work a campaign for months. And it was an era of mass production. If you wanted a greater output, you had to put more in. And that more in typically was greater resources, more staff, bigger budgets, more processes. And if it was the same for agencies, if you wanted to grow and increase your creative output, again, it was by putting more people in. It was the only way back then. And that led to more revenue, and ultimately, you're hoping more profit. But that wasn't guaranteed. As the organisation got bigger, more complex, industries were changing, it was actually harder to get more profit from doing so much, putting so much in. So ultimately, we were dreaming of that digital future where we could actually utilise technology to grow our organisations. And now, hopefully, I think you'll all agree, we live in that future. We live in a digital age. We live in an age where obviously you've got people being born into a world of the internet, and that's changing massively. Historically, in the Fortune 500, the average lifespan for an organisation or a company was 75 years. That's down by 80% to just 15 years. So what's been changing? Obviously with technology coming into industry, you've got younger organisations moving in and just gaining massive amounts of market share from older organisations who just aren't as efficiently utilising that technology as well. And that's meaning that there is no longer this massive link between people, processes, systems, and the output. If you can use technology to become more efficient, it's breaking those lines between company valuations and the amount of resources which you're putting in. And if you have a look at some of the cohorts, so here we've got organisations which are 20 years old, 50 years old, 100 years old, all in the IT industry. And you can start to see this break between valuations and number of employees. You know, if you compare IBM and Facebook, for example, you know, Facebook has 1/10 of the employees for twice the valuation. Oh, sorry, 4 times the valuation. And it's not just the tech industry as well. You see that in other industries. So whether it's a retail industry or whether it's a hospitality industry, you know, you can compare people like Amazon versus Walmart, again, a quarter the number of employees and over twice the valuation. That's putting more and more pressure on the CMO out there. So if you're a CMO typically you have the same budget, you know, budgets aren't increasing massively from a marketing perspective. You've got the same amount of resources, maybe fewer resources, definitely less time, but you're expected to actually be the key driver of company revenue, company growth at the moment. On top of that, you also have to drive digital innovation. You know, consumers are changing, consumer trends are changing as well, and it's down to the CMO to actually ensure that companies are ready to have to face up that changing industry. We've done a couple of studies around Gen Z and various different generations, and looking at the trends on the consumer side and how some of those are changing. And this kind of ties into the challenges that CMOs are facing today. And when we look at the trends around Gen Z, kind of we pull them into 3 different areas: be online, buy online, and build online. And if you look at Gen Z, you know, as I said, they're born into a digital world. You know, they're very different to every other generation out there, which has learned to utilise the internet. They're born into a world where they've always known the internet. They've always known the answer at the end. Well, it used to be a click of a button. Now it's you just simply ask your phone when you're speaking. You get limitless amounts of information. What's quite interesting is they don't even realise just how entwined they are in the world of the web. If we take a quick look at this video.
How long can you go without using the internet?
10 minutes maximum.
Probably a max hour.
A day.
A day.
Yeah, definitely.
No Google Maps, no Netflix, no YouTube.
You've got to love that look of shock. I mean, they're born into the world. For them, it's second nature. And in our survey, you know, 55% of Gen Zers say they can't go more than a few hours without the internet. Well, if you compare that to baby boomers, 22% they can go up to a week without the internet. You know, very different attitudes. What's also interesting is what they use the internet for. Gen Zs, number 1, is entertainment. Actually, for every other generation, any ideas what it could be? For us, what do you use the internet first for?
I don't know. Research.
Exactly.
Stuff out.
No, exactly. Information. Exactly. So for us, for every other single generation from millennials upwards, the number 1 use of the internet is information, research, getting answers. For Gen Z, it's entertainment, number 1, and number 2 is actually connecting to their friends and family. And then you see companies actually have to change their marketing to reflect that. So Klarna, customer of ours, they're a Swedish payments organisation, unicorn, worth about 2.5 billion. And you can see when you go to their website, when you actually look at all of their marketing, they have an entertainment first approach. So first of all, they'll grab Gen Z, which have a very short attention span, about 8 seconds. They'll entertain them and then they'll get their message across. So they're all about smooth payments. I heard Snoop Dogg a couple of years ago, changed into Smooth Dog. You can buy smooth sheets on their website. So they've got a very nice look and feel. In fact, we'll see if this works. No. Can't play that. Otherwise it keeps it going. So you can see from a perspective of the way they utilise their marketing, very nice look and feel, grabs your attention, and then pulls you in. Gen Z is also, they want their experience to be personalised. So 60% are saying, look, websites should know what I'm looking for before I can get to that website. What's more important is actually a lot of them will turn away from your website. It doesn't give them a personalised experience. But on the plus side, they are willing to give you more information so they can get that personalised experience. Okay, buying online. They're a very passionate generation. So they do believe in causes, and they expect you to believe in similar causes, or at least have strong beliefs. So 69% of Gen Zs are more likely to buy from you if you back a cause they believe in. And very importantly, 33% will actually not buy from you if you back a cause which they don't believe in. And you can see companies reacting to that already. So Nike, a lot of you have probably seen the Black Lives Matter campaign, which Nike backed. Now, of course, that had a two-way reaction. There were some people who were actually burning Nike products in the street in protest. But actually, overall, extremely positive for Nike. Sales of their products went up, actually added $6 billion to the valuation of Nike overall, backing such an emotive campaign. Gen Z will expect you to be authentic as well. So this is probably one of the most important areas for Gen Zs because it's scored the highest percentage in the survey. 84% expect you to be utilising real customers in your ads, and they want images which are not photoshopped. And again, you see companies starting to react to that, like CDS here, changed all of their imagery across all of their digital sites to ensure that none of their images were photoshopped, they're all natural. Dove also, you can see the latest Dove campaigns as well, which are all about being natural coming across and nothing which is photoshopped or changed online. Gen Z are also very entrepreneurial. So they're the generation which has seen companies actually grow from absolutely nothing to being massive organisations in just a small number of years. Seen the rise of Uber, Google, Facebook, and so on. And they're very entrepreneurial. They understand that's the digital world, and 64% of Gen Zers believe they'll be creating their own business, and they believe that business will be online and digital first. They understand the importance of their brand as well. They understand that 53% believe that their dating options are going to be affected by their online profile, what they're doing online, what images they share, what people have said about them. And 72% believe that will actually affect their job options as well. And you see this happening already when people actually do a little bit of online research before you hire somebody. You always look at their LinkedIn profile, maybe their Facebook page, maybe their Twitter account, and so on. So the Gen Zers, as we said, digital natives, born on an online world. They understand that their digital world is intrinsically linked to their human world. They interact and socialise with their friends just as much, in fact, more online than they do offline. In fact, my boy's 15, he's very strange. When you take him out with his friends, he doesn't speak to them. But then when he's online on the PlayStation, on his phone, he doesn't shut up. You see him screaming and laughing when he's online, and yet when on face-to-face, they almost have a different relationship. Their lives are almost more important to them from an online perspective than they are from an offline perspective. So in Gen Z, you really see this human experience and digital experience intertwining and being one. This is, of course, putting more pressure on technology out there, and on the key reasons on the rise of open source is because old technology just wasn't moving fast enough for them. Developers were fed up with bloated, expensive software. Got together, started creating their own software which could react to both the industry needs and also the consumer needs out there. Also, from a marketing perspective, marketeers having this pressure in terms of people, resources. This marketing tech stack integration, which is actually ludicrous. Whenever you see the picture out there of all the various different marketing tech elements that you need to integrate these days, it's absolutely massive. And marketers have to do this quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker, which is putting a lot of pressure on them. That's one of the reasons we've seen the rise of WordPress. As a 10-year-old company, we've grown massively in the back of WordPress, which now has a 60% market share. One, because it has this publishing first ethos. It's very agile. You can create great content and actually get it out there extremely quickly. You can experiment. It's not expensive. You don't have to go out there and buy a license worth hundreds of thousands. It's open source software. Technically, it's free, and because it has this open source ethos, customization's extremely easy because you've got people who are constantly developing and adding additional functionality, additional elements to integrate elsewhere when that need arises. So therefore, let's get back to the agency, how this all reflects back to the agency. Our guys in the US have been actually creating a documentary going around the world, interviewing a lot of agencies, and from that they're getting 4 key trends on how people actually, or how agencies are utilising that technology and reflecting to these various different trends. Number 1, small tests, big audiences. What we mean by this is actually you don't need to spend months planning a massive campaign. You don't necessarily need to have a massive budget, but you need to be able to react quickly based on a success of any particular element. What I mean by this, I'll give you a quick example. So this is Wendy's. Carter Wilkinson just sent a random tweet to Wendy's saying, hey, how many retweets do I need to get free chicken nuggets? Kind of what all of us are probably thinking on a Monday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon. How do I get some free chicken nuggets? Quick retweet. And Wendy's said, okay, what you need to do is get 18 million retweets. Consider it done. Wendy's PR company jumped on the back of this actually, created a hashtag, Nugs for Carter, went extremely viral, went mad. I think they had 2.5 billion impressions, increased their Twitter followers by about 150,000. Share of voice on the internet for Wendy's went up by 350%. So again, reacting quickly, diving in, pushing a campaign, and you can get massive amounts of success. Hack the channel. All about utilising new technology in new, innovative ways, and being the first out there helps you massively. For us, for this example, it's Argos with the Google Intelligent Speakers. Actually created a quick application for the Google speakers, so you can actually reserve products at an Argos store and go pick it up. Again, good success. Sales of intelligent speakers went up by 150% for Argos extremely quickly in the back of this. We've definitely seen a blend of PR and creative as well. And it's funny, now you get a lot of PR on the back of creative campaigns. So in this example, it's Burger King who have been extremely clever targeting McDonald's in the US. They came to the conclusion that McDonald's has way more stores than them and in better locations. Okay, how do we combat that? I'll tell you what, we'll create an app which tells a consumer when they're near a McDonald's, they'll flash up an offer for a Burger King Whopper for 1 cent, and will redirect consumers away from McDonald's to a Burger King. And what's interesting about this is it went in the press massively, it was on national television, and you know, from a campaign like this, it obviously went viral from a PR perspective. They had 1.5 million downloads, 3.3 billion impressions, and a 27-to-1 return on the campaign. So utilising press and media as part of your campaign is extremely important. The last key trend, which we're finding from interviewing these agencies, is making every experience valuable. You'll see this when you buy your Domino's pizza. You know, you'll order online, it'll be seamless, it'll tell you who's preparing your pizza, it'll tell you where it is, exactly what time it's arriving. And you've also got companies like L'Oreal. So in this particular campaign, they worked with a facial recognition company. You're able to upload, obviously, an image of yourself, change your hair colour, try all their various different makeups. On the back of this, they had 250 million virtual trials for their products, downloaded 1.4 million apps. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavour of the documentary. I've got a couple of snippets as a wrap up, so it's like a 2-minute snap of the documentary just to give you a flavour of what's coming.
I'd like to teach the world to sing.
Mamma mia, the sun speaks that spicy.
Hey, where's the big?
I already have a good name, Peanut Butter.
That the entire advertising industry
was built upon that one little rock that we can buy time from consumers.
We're not going to earn your viewership, we're going to buy.
What happens when they do not let us buy their time?
It spans the globe like a superhighway and is called internet.
Can you explain what internet is?
Again, from online, you can go online.
What will they think of next?
The concept that advertising is going to change consumer sentiment doesn't really exist anymore, because consumers change consumer sentiment in real time.
There wasn't that much great stuff out there. And advertising, oddly enough, was a huge contributor to figuring out what the internet could be.
It was the onset of DVRs, video on demand. Everything was evolving very quickly.
The web just ate it.
It was all about creating just a unique experience.
It seemed interesting, but not really advertising.
You don't have to define advertising in your traditional sense anymore. Anything we say or anything we do is an advertisement in itself.
I think there's a lot of creatives though that miss a little bit of that Wild West stage. But of course, there's always a new digital frontier.
The code is like milk. There's an expiration date for sure. Like things change, browsers change, you change.
We have choice. We can either make advertising more annoying, more intrusive, or we can make people's lives better.
It's not about tech. It's what technology makes possible.
It's a tool. How can we use technology to uplift people and to help people?
But what can we do with virtual reality, AR, mobile, tablets?
It's not just a single package website. The technology can loop in and out of all of those experiences.
It depends on the device you use. Mobile phones could get replaced by a really bomb AR device.
It doesn't exist yet, but when it does, we'll be thinking about how to use it.
And how do you convince a brand to go there and innovate that space before anyone else does?
Well, hopefully that gives you a little bit of flavour of the documentary, which we'll share when it comes out. Just to wrap up, we have, obviously that's a lot of content, 50 slides in 15, 20 short minutes. We have a summit coming up, a digital summit actually on November the 12th. So lots more information, some great external speakers from organisations like Google and Amazon coming along, as well as some new research which we've just done ourselves on AI and personalisation as well. So we'll send you information on the summit, and of course you're all welcome to attend. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Karen. I'm from a design consultancy called Else over in Wapping. I'm principal experience architect there. Do have my slides on here. There we go. That's the one. Next one. Next one. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. That was that slide. So we work across quite a broad spectrum of clients and a broad spectrum of size of clients as well. And clients come to us when, for one of these three reasons. So if they're trying to launch a new product, if they're responding to some disruption within their industry, or if they're themselves looking to shake up the industry. So these are the three type of areas where we work with clients. We've got quite a broad range of clients, so this is across Europe, the clients that we work with or have worked with in the past, and also globally, the type of clients that we're working with. So, so today we're talking about how digital experiences level the playing fields for brands and agencies. And when I first thought about this, I thought, no, they don't. And the reason why I think that is because these experiences, they still need to be designed and they still need to be implemented into organisations, regardless of the size. And when you're working in that field, the playing field isn't level, and there's a few reasons for that. So when you're working with big enterprises, the culture that's required to get those ideas moving, it's not there yet, and there's various reasons why it's not there. But with startups, that culture is there, and they do move quickly and they do move fast, but they get to a point where they kind of need to grow up and cracks start to appear. And I think we're starting to see this now with companies like Monzo and the release of their premium service, and then how that's been withdrawn, et cetera, et cetera. So they've scaled up really quickly, but then they get to a point where they need the grown-ups. And just to illustrate that, quite simple way, but you kind of have like companies with a sense of naivety. So you've got all your startups who in essence are like kids, and you've got the mature enterprises who have all the knowledge. But what we need to do when we're working with them is we kind of need to shift these startups to a place of maturity, and we kind of need to alleviate the enterprises of some of their, not their knowledge, but some of their restrictions. And the way I can liken this is if you take a 40-year-old and a 5-year-old skiing, the 40-year-old's going to be quite nervous about going and throwing themselves down the ski run for the first time, whereas the 5-year-old, it doesn't have that fear, it doesn't have those preconceptions of what might happen, and they'll just shut themselves down. And this is great, but it gets to a point where they both need a little bit of shifting. And to try and illustrate what I mean by this, we go through this process with our clients where we go through a kind of acceleration phase, and that might be a 6 to 8 week discovery and a phase to get to the nut of the problem, start to work out the problem. Then you kind of go into this phase where you're starting to launch the problem, launch the product, and then you'll go into an embed phase where you're starting to get that product really ingrained in the organisation and start to iron out the curves. And what we tend to find is that both sizes of organisations are really good at that acceleration phase. They can all get around the problem, they can get the right people into the room to start working on that problem. But as you start doing like the hard yard of starting to build that thing and get that product launched, things start to speed up for the startups, and it's because of the lack of fear, and they can move quickly, and they have the right team, and they have the right kind of culture and mindset. Whereas when you're working with a big enterprise, things start to slow down, and it's because you've got the systems to integrate to, you've got probably a lot of education to do with the process that you're going through. But then I think what kind of happens is once you get to a period where things start to embed into the system and you're further down the line, then the playing field does kind of start to level out, but it's a lot further down the line than what we might think. And just working with some of the big enterprises, we work with a lot of financial organisations, and working with them, we found some of the issues are like the integration into legacy systems. They've got larger teams and more stakeholders involved. They have the regulations and the existing processes that exist that you have to work with from day one. And generally they're quite risk averse because of the knowledge and because of these regulations, etc., that they already have in place. And generally they're not really familiar with the process, the design process that we'll go through, so we need to educate all the stakeholders, everybody involved on that process and what's to be expected, and that all takes time. But what they do have in their favour, obviously, is that they have a lot of financial backing. They do have more leeway to fail because they can absorb the costs of that. They have the rich data sets, which the startups don't have to start with, and obviously they have the industry expertise. Whereas when we look at the startups, any kind of risks that the startups take, it can have a big impact on them. So it could see them off. So whereas the startups should maybe be a little bit more risk averse, they're not, they just go for it. And then they need to build their data sets over time. But we've got things like open banking now, which is starting to change that because they're starting to get the access to information. And when the startups start to expand due to economies of scales, etc., they don't necessarily have, that they need to replicate those teams that got them to the point where they're at now, and that's really difficult to get those teams across the globe or across, expanding on those teams. And because they move so quickly, they start to incur design debt as they go, and all that kind of stuff needs to be sorted out at some point because it just builds up like a big snowball behind them. But in their favour, they do have the smaller teams. Generally, they seem to be more familiar with the process, and they do have more faith in the process. And because they move so quickly, a lot of the talent's attracted to agencies or startups working with agencies. And as I said, you've got to kind of deal with some of those hard realities later down the line. So whereas you might kind of launch the beginnings of a banking product, then it comes to a point where you do have to look at those regulations and you do have to make sure that the system incorporates all those things. So to level the playing field, there's 3 things that I think you need from the start, and they are a vision. You need to start with a vision, and you need to trust the process that you're going to go through. So everyone's got to be on board with it, and everyone's got to believe it, and they've all got to understand the process. And what you'll tend to find, probably of both examples, actually startup and enterprise, you'll get people joining the team for, as the project progresses. But it's so important that they are onboarded into what you're doing and they believe in what you're doing, because that just slows things down if they're not. And you need a team that's capable on delivering the vision. So that's getting everybody that's going to solve that problem involved as soon as possible. And again, if they're not, then they need to be onboarded straight away. And the right culture. So if you're working with an enterprise or you're working with a startup that promotes that culture, then it's going to be a lot easier. And that's some of the stuff that we work with enterprises on now. So it's like the organisational design of those companies and helping them to become more startup minded. So that's my response to the question.
I haven't done any slides, so I was just going to really try to build on what Fabio and Karen talked about. So my name's Tim. I work for a company. You've been pixelated to protect your identity. Can I just start? So I work for a company called Foolproof. I don't know if you've heard of it. We're a small design company. We have about 130 people working Foolproof in the UK and Singapore. We're part of a tech services company called Zenza, which has about 10,000 employees. How many people here are from agencies? I presume the vast majority. How many people are from agencies with less than 100 people? Okay, so you're really interested about what digital can level the playing field. How many people from agencies that have more than 100 people? Okay, so we're sort of talking about in that zone. I thought I'd just share a little bit about the story of Foolproof and the way and how I see this sort of coming out. So Foolproof's about 17 years old. I've been at Foolproof for 15 years. If you don't know anything about us, we're a digital product and service design company, and our ethos is around a customer-centered approach, or UX, user-centered design. Well, we used to be a usability testing company when we first started, and as we've evolved over time, we moved to become a design company and now an end-to-end delivery organisation. Now, the reason why digital was such an exciting thing for someone who's working in industry, so I used to work for an insurance or a financial services company before joining Foolproof. I'd never worked in an agency before. Is that what I found was, in my enterprise, that when we started trying to build digital channels in the way that big companies build things, it was shit. Basically, we were building things for ourselves, and actually, the things that were important to customers were broadly speaking left out. But understanding how products really work, what are the downsides to products, understanding how to get the best out of the products and services that I'll be buying. And so when we started using user insights, so interviews, data, to understand actually what was important to customers, it was a real light bulb for me. And actually really the reason why Foolproofs exists as a company is we think that for digital to be an effective, not just channel, but sort of reinvention of an organisation, you have to put customers into it. So that's pretty cool. That's very exciting because it's actually, for most big organisations 10 years ago, that was just a really foreign idea. And so the idea of agencies coming in that were either digitally focused or focused around user-centred design was a really exciting and hot thing. But what happens if you fast forward and actually all of the organisations that you deal with, broadly speaking, whether they really believe it or not, accept that design's probably going to be, or users and design are going to be an important part of that. And they've drunk the Kool-Aid. Now all they really care about is scaling. You've convinced us. Okay, well then we need thousands of people to be able to do that. And that's kind of where Foolproof found itself, or sort of looking a few years ahead. This is probably 5 years ago. We had about 100 people in our company, and we really saw, I think Karen, what you've described in your experience is very similar. We're very enterprise focused, so our biggest clients in the last 10 years have been HSBC, Shell, Sony, Unilever, AXA. We don't really work with startups very much, so we're working with big companies who have relied traditionally on very, very big tech firms on the system side, and very big marketing or marketing communications companies on the marketing communications side. And our feeling is actually, if you look at the customer experience, most of the resources of an organisation that actually control what the customer experience is increasingly the CIO. So actually, if you look at actually where the money gets spent and where the headcount as an organisation and how many of those people affect what customers actually get as an experience, most of it is around the technology. And so from our perspective, we sort of could see, unless we could have or be part of an organisation where we were able to access core systems and access data, especially if you believe AI is going to be the sort of the next wave that's going to really sort of transform what customers get, then you have to find a way to do that. And really, so our route was really to try and join a technology services company. And so we've really sort of, like other organisations like Fjord and Designer, we've taken the route we need to be part of a technology services company or a broader business change organisation if we really want to access that. That's our path, and actually it's been very interesting over the last 3 years to work out how that actually works. But I think depending on what sort of organisation you work in, you probably have a choice. I think when we think about the life cycle for any digital product or service these days, there's really 3 phases. The first phase is this sort of imagine or reimagining, and really that's the sort of zone that's sort of starting to be owned by innovation. It has been owned quite a lot in organisations we deal with by teams that are specifically focused on innovation. And you can carve out a pretty happy life as a digital innovation agency or consultancy if you work with those teams. But you're probably not going to be massive. You'll probably be you'll be boutique and niche, and you can be happy with that. But if you really want to grow and scale, you have to move into the make phase, actually, where you're actually making, and this is where I look at some organisation like WP Engine, and you're really servicing that market really, really, really well, where you're taking that idea that's been proven through data or through sort of business modelling, and you can prove that actually there's a value in scaling up that idea, and then put it, basically how quickly can you get that to market. And then really there's, the monetization of all of that is whether you can be around for the run and optimize. Really that's the decision I think that most agencies have to make. You have to kind of choose, how do we fit within the digital product life cycle, and how do we position ourselves against any competitors that want to eat our lunch in that space. We've very much gone after, Foolproof is very much around the imagine part, and we can move into the make through sort of being part of a technology services group. But there are other ways of positioning yourself, and I think that's really the key thing for agencies, is trying to understand where do we fit in, how does this organisation organise itself to start to ship digital products and services, and what positioning do we take in that? I don't know if that's answered the question about whether digital's levelling, but I think when organisations at sort of this enterprise scale become mature about digital, it's not a very level playing field anymore. Because actually, we're in a building of an organisation who has actually reinvented itself around digital pretty well, I think. If you look at Accenture, they've repositioned themselves around digital. They've been very effective in terms of driving change in that organisation. IBM, I don't know, I went to a talk by Doug Powell, they have 3,000 designers at IBM. That's a lot. That's a lot of designers. Probably not enough in an organisation of 300,000. But all of these big companies have actually, big agencies or big change partners have actually responded in kind. And actually you have to kind of work out where you fit in that. You're either up against them and you're part of something big, or you're nimble and in niche or boutique, and you can actually outflank. That's, I think you can, my sense is there's a lot of work for everyone. You just kind of know what you are and actually be really, really great at what you are.
Brilliant to push for time.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex from iSpot. Thank you for coming here today. So, similar story to Tim's story, but the flip. So we, in the UK market, were about making things, and now we're increasingly investing in imagining things. So in the UK, we're about building digital experiences. So, for example, we run Adidas's e-commerce globally on the Salesforce Commerce Cloud platform. That's one of our key clients. But again, we develop that site, we support that site, but we don't create any experiences for Adidas in that instance. So for us, as a business, we have a lot of conversations around, okay, it's great, and we're really going to keep partnering for them, they're our clients. But ultimately, when it comes to it, it's very hard to differentiate yourself because it comes under cost. I'm perfectly frank, it comes under cost. And so we noticed that a couple of years ago, but right, we need to start investing in user experience, creative agencies, to really go to clients and say, we can build your website, it'll be end-to-end, creative through UX, through development support, for example. So interesting kind of take from you. And that's where we're heading as a business. We acquired a company called White Space at Edinburgh about 9 months ago now, and that's given us a real strong point of differentiation to go and have conversations with clients, because it should, in our opinion, start with the experience. So what experience are you looking to deliver to your customers? How do we create that? How do we build that out? And what technology do we use to support that experience? That's kind of very much our kind of methodology here in the UK. But it's taken us a couple of years to kind of get to that point, because our heritage is all about that making. But my role specifically, innovation is a little bit of a bullshit word, if we're being frank, but so I've been at the company 2 years, and what I found is that you have creative people that speak a certain language, and you have tech people that speak another language. There's very few that can either bridge that gap or speak both languages. So my role in this kind of change that we're going through is how do I bring creatives and tech teams together to deliver digital experiences to customers that are going to generate ROI. So from a head of innovation perspective, I have my main strength in that respect is my commercial eye. So probably slightly different to maybe other different agencies, different heads of innovation, different reason, but that's the way I kind of see innovation. Is that if we're not delivering, you deliver a great experience, deliver some great PR, but if it doesn't push the needle within the long run, then for me personally, that's something that we don't want to kind of do as a business. So that's my take on us as iSpot, where we've been, where we're going, the importance of creativity as an enabler and as a point of difference when you build an experience, and also my kind of take innovation as well.